Part 2 of reading the Barber's tale of himself. We got cut off because the book is heavy and leaned down on the laptop. Finger touch pad and blipped us off. Dear Goddess. So we're continuing on with the story, part 2. It's still the 28th of November 2024, 3:26 p.m. It's currently 28 degrees. And on we go, my darlings. So we're at the part where the woman and her husband who hired the tailor to make shirts and clothing for them but refused to pay did it just to mock and deride him and play him for a fool. Next morning he went to his shop, and as he sat there, what's going on here? Okay. And as he sat there, the handmaid came to him and said, "Speak with my master." So he accompanied her to the husband, who said to him, "I wish thee to cut out for me 5 long-sleeved robes." So he cut them out and took the stuff and went away. Then he sewed them and carried them to the gentleman, who praised his sewing and offered him a purse of silver. He put out his hand to take it, but the lady signed to him from behind her husband not to do so, and he replied, "Oh, my lord, there is no hurry. We have time enough for this." Then he went forth from the house, meaner and meeker than a donkey, for verily 5 things were gathered together in him, viz., love, beggary, hunger, nakedness, and hard labour. Nevertheless, he heartened himself with the hope of gaining the lady's favours. When he had made an end of all their jobs, they played him another trick and married him to their slave girl. But on a night when he thought to go into her, they said to him, "Lie this night in the mill, and tomorrow all will go well." My brother concluded that there was some good cause for this, and nighted alone in the mill. I have to say, he's a very tolerant, patient man, isn't he? I'd be getting really annoyed. But the first time someone refused to pay me for my labour, I'd be very annoyed. "Oh, Charlie, stop bathing in your water, it's everywhere." Dear Goddess, you crazy bird. You're a crazy little birdie. Yes, you are. You are the crazy one. She says, "I'm just living my best life, Auntie. It's hot and I'm a hot little free bird and do what I want, whatever." She really does. This water, I'll try to mop it up, but it's just flicking it everywhere. But this is not good for my desk, Charlie. Seriously. You'll have to go back in your cage. So where were we? Nevertheless, he heartened himself with the hope of gaining the lady's favours. You're getting water on my beautiful book and also on my laptop, which can't be good for it. I'm going to have to move the people around. It's the laptop that I worry about. You'll do anything to show off for the people, wouldn't you? Come here. Come here. Come here. No, come here. Okay. She's a rat bag. She's a little rat bag. A happy little rat bag. I like you, Charlie. Oh, the Goddess. A happy little rat bag. While I was out there, I got some supplies. Naughty, naughty Mama T. Very naughty. I'll just try and dry this off a bit. We're still filming? Yes. We're still filming. Just don't want to ruin my laptop because it's already got a double inside it and does its own thing, whatever it wants, with gin in it. And I don't want it completely damaged and broken down, so there won't be another one after this. So Mama T has to preserve her equipment and whatever I have has to last, babies. It's all very, very it's a fine balance, fine juggling act. Right. My goodness, so much water, Charlie. Well, she had a lovely time. She had a lovely time, and that's what kind of counts. Right, are we still filming? Yes. So let us return to the story. Go get some. My beautiful one brought me these. I love these. Raspberry chocolate sticks. Yum. Right. It's still wet. How can it still be wet when I dried it? Oh my goodness. So I'll repeat that. He'd married her but couldn't lie with her as in consummate their marriage. She told him to lie in the mill. He was told to lie in the mill. And that tomorrow all would go well. Delaying gratification. They did that a lot in fairy stories, didn't they? Made men wait. Anyway, can't hurt. Bit of self-discipline. Try 9 years of self-discipline and you'll become the taonga. Just saying. My brother concluded that there was some good cause for this, and nighted alone in the mill. Now the husband had set on the miller to make the tailor turn the mill. So when night was half spent, the man came into him and began to say, "This bull of ours hath become useless, and standeth still instead of going round. He will not turn the mill this night. And yet we have great store of corn to be ground. However, I'll yoke him perforce, and make him finish grinding it before morning, as the folk are impatient for their flour." So he filled the hoppers with grain, and, going up to my brother with a rope in his hand, tied it round his neck, and said to him, "Gee up, round with the mill, thou, O bull, wouldst do nothing but grub and stale and dung." Then he took a whip and laid it on the shoulders and calves of my brother, who began to howl and bellow as you would, but none came to help him, He was forced to grind the wheat till hard upon dawn, when the housemaster came in, and seeing my brother still tethered to the yoke, and the man flogging him, went away. At daybreak, the miller returned home and left him still yoked and half dead, and soon after in came the slave girl, who unbound him and said to him, I and my lady are right sorry for what hath happened, and we have borne thy grief with thee. But he had no tongue wherewith to answer her, from excess of beating and mill turning. Then he retired to his lodging, and behold, the clerk who had drawn up the marriage deed came to him and saluted him, saying, Allah give thee long life. May thy espousal be blessed. This face telleth of pleasant doings and dalliance and kissing and clipping from dusk to dawn. Allah grant the liar no peace, O thou thousandfold cuckold, my brother replied. By Allah, I did nothing but turn the mill in the place of the bull all night till morning. Tell me thy tale, quoth he. And my brother recounted what had befallen him. And he said, Thy star agrees not with her star, but an thou wilt, I can alter the contract for thee, adding, where lest another cheat be not in store for thee. And my brother answered him, See if thou have not another contrivance. Then the clerk left Then the clerk left him, and he sat in his shop, looking for someone to bring him a job where he might earn his day's bread. Presently the handmaid came to him and said, Speak with my lady. Begone, O my good girl, replied he. There shall be no more dealings between me and thy lady. The handmaid returned to her mistress and told her what my brother had said, and presently she put her head out of the window, weeping and saying, Why, O my beloved, are there to be no more dealings twixt me and thee? But he made her no answer. Then she wept and conjured him, swearing that all which had befallen him in the mill was not sanctioned by her, and that she was innocent of the whole matter. When he looked upon her beauty and loveliness, and heard the sweetness of her speech, the sorrow which had possessed him passed from his heart. He accepted her excuse, and he rejoiced in her sight. So he saluted her and talked with her and sat tailoring a while, after which the handmaid came to him and said, My mistress greeteth thee and informeth thee that her husband purposeth to lie abroad this night in the house of some intimate friends of his. So when he is gone, do thou come to us and spend the night with my lady in delightsomest joyance till the morning. It's an interesting way of putting it, isn't it? Delightsomest, joyous. Now her husband had asked her, How shall we manage to turn him away from thee? And she answered, Leave me to play him another trick, and make him a laughing stock for all the town. But my brother knew naught of the malice of women. As soon as it was dusk, the slave girl came to him and carried him to the house. And when the lady saw him, she said to him, "By Allah, O my lord, I have been longing exceedingly for thee." "By Allah," cried he, "kiss me quick, before thou give me aught else." Hardly had he spoken, when the lady's husband came in from the next room and seized him, saying, "By Allah, I will not let thee go till I deliver thee to the chief of the town watch." My brother humbled himself to him, but he would not listen to him, and carried him before the prefect, who gave him 100 lashes with a whip, and mounting him on a camel, promenaded him about the city, whilst the guards proclaimed aloud, "This is his reward, who violateth the harems of honourable men." Moreover, he fell off the camel and broke his leg, and so became lame. Then the prefect banished him from the city, and he went forth unknowing whither he would wend. But I heard of him, and fearing for him went out after him, and brought him back secretly to the city, and restored him to health, and took him into my house, where he still liveth. The Caliph laughed at my story and said, "Thou hast done well, O Samit, a silent man, O spare of speech." And he bade me take a present and go away. But I said, "I will accept naught of thee, except I tell thee what befell all my other brothers, and do not think me a man of many words." So the Caliph gave ear to the Barber's tale of his second brother. Know, O Commander of the Faithful, that my second brother's name was Al-Hadar, that is, the babbler, and he was the paralytic. Now it happened to him one day as he was going about his business, that an old woman accosted him and said, "Stop a little, my good man, that I may tell thee of somewhat which, if it be to thy liking, thou shalt do for me, and I will pray Allah to give thee good of it." My brother stopped, and she went on, "I will put thee in the way of a certain thing, so thou not be prodigal of speech." "On with thy talk," quoth he. And she, "What sayest thou to handsome quarters, and a fair garden with flowing waters, flowers blooming and fruit growing, and old wine going, and a pretty young face, whose owner thou mayest embrace from dark till dawn? If thou do whatso I bid thee, thou shalt see something greatly to thy advantage." "And is all this in the world?" asked my brother. And she answered, "Yes, and it shall be thine. So thou be reasonable, and leave idle curiosity and many words, and do my bidding." "I will indeed, O my lady," said he. "How is it thou hast preferred me in this matter before all men? And what is it that so much pleaseth thee in me?" Good question. Quoth she, "Did I not bid thee be spare of speech? Hold thy peace and follow me. Know that the young lady to whom I shall carry thee loveth to have her own way, and hateth being thwarted and all who gainsay. So, if thou humour her, thou shalt come to thy desire of her. And my brother said, I will not cross her in anything. Then she went on, and my brother followed her, and hungering after what she described to him, till they entered a fine large house, handsome and choicely furnished, full of eunuchs and servants, and showing signs of prosperity from top to bottom. And she was carrying him to the upper story, when the people of the house said to him, What dost thou here? But the old woman answered them, Hold your peace and trouble him not. He is a workman, and we have occasion for him. Then she brought him into a fine great pavilion, with a garden in its midst. Never eyes saw a fairer, and made him sit upon a handsome couch. He had not sat long before he heard a loud noise, and in came a troop of slave girls, surrounding a lady like the moon on the night of its fullest. When he saw her, he rose up and made an obeisance to her, whereupon she welcomed him and bade him be seated. So he sat down, and she said to him, Allah advance thee to honour. Is all well with thee? O my lady, he answered, all with me is right well. Then she bade bring in food, and they set before her delicate viands. So she sat down to eat, making a show of affection to my brother and jesting with him, though all the while she could not refrain from laughing, and as often as he looked at her, she signed towards her handmaidens as though she were laughing at them. My brother, the ass, understood nothing, but in the excess of his ridiculous passion, he fancied that the lady was in love with him, and that she would soon grant him his desire. When they had done eating, they set on the wine, and there came in 10 maidens like moons, with lutes ready strung in their hands, and fell to singing with full voices, sweet and sad. Whereupon delight gat hold upon him, and he took the cup from the lady's hands and drank it standing. Then she drank a cup of wine, and my brother, still standing, said to her, Health, and bowed to her. She handed him another cup, and he drank it off, when she slapped him hard on the nape of his neck. Upon this my brother would have gone out of the house in anger, but the old woman followed him and winked to him to return. So he came back, and the lady bade him sit, and he sat down without a word. Then she again slapped him on the nape of his neck, and the second slapping did not suffice her. She must needs make all her handmaids also slap and cuff him, while he kept saying to the old woman, I never saw aught nicer than this. She on her side ceased not exclaiming, Enough, enough, I conjure thee, O my mistress. But the women slapped him till he well nigh swooned away. Presently my brother rose and went out to obey a call of nature. But the old woman overtook her and said, Excuse me. Oh, excuse me. Be patient a little, and thou shalt win to thy wish. How much longer have I to wait? My brother replied. The slapping hath made me feel faint. As soon as she is warm with wine, answered she, thou shalt have thy desire. So he returned to his place and sat down, whereupon all the handmaidens stood up, and the lady bade them perfume him with pastilles and besprinkle his face with rose water. Then said she to him, Allah advance thee to honour. Thou hast entered my house and hast borne with my conditions. For whoso thwarteth me, I turn him away, and whoso is patient hath his desire. O mistress mine, said he, I am thy slave, and in the hollow of thy hand. Know then, continued she, that Allah hath made me passionately fond of frolic, and whoso falleth in with my humour cometh by whatso he wisheth. Then she ordered her maidens to sing with loud voices till the whole company was delighted, after which she said to one of them, Take thy lord and do what is needful for him, and bring him back to me forthright. So the damsel took my brother, and he not knowing what she would do with him. But the old woman overtook him, and said, Be patient, there remaineth but little to do. At this his face brightened, and he stood up before the lady, while the old woman kept saying, Be patient, thou wilt now at once win to thy wish, till he said, Tell me what she would have the maiden do with me. Nothing but good, replied she, as I am thy sacrifice. She wisheth only to dye thy eyebrows and pluck out thy mustachios. Quoth he, As for the dyeing of my eyebrows, that will come off with washing, but for the plucking out of my mustachios, that indeed is a somewhat painful process. Be careful, be cautious, how thou cross her, cried the old woman, for she hath set her heart on thee. So my brother patiently suffered her to dye his eyebrows and pluck out his mustachios, and after which the maiden returned to her mistress and told her. Quoth she, Remaineth now only one other thing to be done. Thou must shave his beard, and make him a smoother face. So the maiden went back and told him what her mistress had bidden her do, and my brother, the blockhead, said to her, How shall I do what will disgrace me before the folk? But the old woman said, She would do on this wise only that thou mayest be a beardless youth, and that no hair be left on thy face to scratch and prick her delicate cheeks. For indeed she is passionately in love with thee. So be patient, and thou shalt attain thine object. My brother was patient and did her bidding, and let shave off his beard. And when he was brought back to the lady, lo, he appeared, dyed red as to his eyebrows, plucked of both mustachios, shorn of his beard, rouged on both cheeks. At first she was affrighted at him. Then she made mockery of him, and, laughing till she fell upon her back, said, O my lord, thou hast indeed won my heart by thy good nature. Then she conjured him by her life to stand up and dance, and he arose and capered about, and there was not a cushion in the house, but she threw it at his head, And in like manner did all her women, who also kept pelting him with oranges and lemons and citrons, till he fell down senseless from the cuffing on the nape of the neck, the pillowing, and the fruit peeling. Sorry, the fruit pelting. Dear Goddess. Now thou hast attained thy wish, said the old woman when she came round. There are no more blows in store for thee, and there remaineth but one thing to do. It is her wont, when she is in her cups, to let no one have her until she put off her dress and trousers and remain stark naked. Then she will bid thee doff thy clothes and run, and she will run before thee as if she were flying from thee. And do thou follow her from place to place, till thy prickle stands at fullest point, when she will yield to thee. Adding, strip off thy clothes at once. So he rose, well nigh lost in ecstasy, and, doffing his raiment, showed himself mother naked. Whereupon the lady stripped also and said to my brother, If thou want anything, run after me, till thou catch me. Pardon me. Then she set out at a run, and he ran after her, while she rushed into room after room, and rushed out of room after room, my brother scampering after her in a rage of desire, like a veritable madman, with yards standing terribly tall. After much of this kind, she dashed into a darkened place, and he dashed after her. But suddenly he trod upon a yielding spot, which gave way under his weight, and before he was aware where he was, he found himself in the midst of a crowded market, part of the bazaar of the leather sellers, who were crying the prices of skins and hides, and buying and selling. When they saw him in his plight, naked, with standing yard, shorn of beard and mustachios, with eyebrows dyed red, and cheeks ruddied with rouge, they shouted and clapped their hands at him, and set to flogging him with skins upon his bare body, till a swoon came over him. Then they threw him on the back of an ass and carried him to the chief of police. Quoth the chief, What is this? Quoth they, This fellow fell suddenly upon us out of the wazir's house in this state. So the prefect gave him 100 lashes, and then banished him from Baghdad. However, I went out after him, and brought him back secretly into the city, and made him a daily allowance for his living, although, were it not for my generous humour, I would not have put up with the like of him. Then the Caliph gave ear to the Barber's tale of his third brother. This is actually quite a long story, this one. My third brother's name was Al-Fakik, the gabbler, who was blind. One day fate and fortune drove him to a fine large house, and he knocked at the door desiring speech of its owner, that he might beg somewhat of him. Quoth the master of the house, Who is at the door? But my brother spake not a word, and presently heard him repeat with a loud voice, Who is this?" Still he made no answer, and immediately heard the master walk to the door and open it and say, "What dost thou want?" My brother answered, "Something for Allah Almighty's sake." "Art thou blind?" asked the man, and my brother answered, "Yes." Quoth the other, "Stretch me out thy hand." So my brother put out his hand, thinking that he would give him something. But he took it, and drawing him into the house, carried him up from stair to stair, till they reached the terrace on the housetop, my brother thinking the while that he would surely give him something of food or money. When he asked my brother, "What dost thou want, O blind man?" and he answered, "Something for the Almighty's sake." Allah opened for thee some other door. O thou, why not say so when I was below stairs? O cadger, why not answer me when I first called to thee? And what meanest thou to do for me now? There is nothing in the house to give thee. Then take me down the stair. The path is before thee. So my brother rose and made his way downstairs, till he came within 20 steps of the door, when his foot slipped, and he rolled to the bottom and broke his head. Then he went out, unknowing whither to turn, and presently fell in with 2 other blind men, companions of his, who said to him, "What didst thou gain today?" He told them what had befallen him, and added, "O my brothers, I wish to take some of the money in my hands, and provide myself with it." Now the master of the house had followed him and was listening to what they said, but neither my brother nor his comrades knew of this. So my brother went to his lodging and sat down to await his companions, and the house owner entered after him without being perceived. When the other blind men arrived, my brother said to them, "Bolt the door and search the house, lest any stranger have followed us." The man, hearing this, caught hold of a cord that hung from the ceiling and clung to it, whilst they went round about the house and searched, but found no one. So they came back and, sitting beside my brother, brought out their money, which they counted, and lo, it was 12,000 dirhams. Each took what he wanted, and they buried the rest in a corner of the room. Then they set on food and sat down to eat. Presently my brother, hearing a strange pair of jaws munching by his side, said to his friends, "There is a stranger amongst us." And putting forth his hand, caught hold of that of the housemaster. Whereupon all fell on him and beat him. And when tired of belabouring him, they shouted, "O ye Muslims, a thief has come into us, seeking to take our money." A crowd gathered around them, whereupon the intruder hung on to them, and complained with them as they complained, and shutting his eyes like them, so that none might doubt his blindness, cried out, "O Muslims, I take refuge with Allah and the governor, for I have a matter to make known to him." Suddenly up came the watch, and laying hands on the whole lot, my brother being amongst them, drove them to the governors, who set them before him and asked, "What news with you?" Quoth the intruder, "Look and find out for thyself. Not a word shall be wrung from us save by torture. So begin by beating me, and after me beat this man our leader." And he pointed to my brother. So they threw the man at full length and gave him 400 sticks on his backside. The beating pained him, whereupon he opened one eye, and as they redoubled their blows, he opened the other eye. When the governor saw this, he said to him, "What have we here, O accursed?" Whereto he replied, "Give me the seal ring of pardon. We four have shammed blind, and we impose upon people that we may enter houses and look upon the unveiled faces of the women and contrive for their corruption. In this way we have gotten great gain, and our store amounts to 12,000 dirhams." Said I to my company, "Give me my share, 3,000. But they rose and bet me, and took away my money. And I seek refuge with Allah and with thee. Better thou have my share than they. So if thou wouldst know the truth of my words, beat one and every of the others more than thou hast beaten me, and he will surely open his eyes." The governor gave orders for the question to begin with my brother, and they bound him to the whipping post. And the governor said, "O scum of the earth, do ye abuse the gracious gifts of Allah, and make as if ye were blind?" "Allah, Allah," cried my brother. "By Allah, there is none among us who can see." Then they beat him till he swooned away. That means fainted. And the governor cried, "Leave him till he come to, and then beat him again." After this he caused each of the companions to receive more than 300 sticks, whilst the sham Abraham kept saying to them, "Open your eyes, or you will be beaten afresh." At last the man said to the governor, "Dispatch someone with me to bring thee the money, for these fellows will not open their eyes, lest they incur disgrace before the folk." So the governor sent to fetch the money and gave the man his pretended share, 3,000 dirhams, and, keeping the rest for himself, banished the 3 blind men from the city. But I, O Commander of the Faithful, went out and overtaking my brother, instructed him of his case, whereupon he told me of what I have told thee. So I brought him secretly into the city, and appointed him, in the strictest privacy, an allowance for meat and drink. The Caliph laughed at my story and said, "Give him a gift and let him go." But I said, "By Allah, I will take naught till I have made known to the Commander of the Faithful what came to pass with the rest of my brothers, for truly I am a man of few words and spare of speech." Then the Caliph gave ear to the Barber's tale of his 4th brother. Now as for my 4th brother, O Commander of the Faithful, Al-Quz al-Aswani, or the long-legged Googlet height, from his brimming over with words, the same who was blind of one eye. He became a butcher in Baghdad, and he sold flesh, and with fattened rams, and great men and rich bought their meat of him, so that he amassed much wealth, and got him cattle and houses. He fared thus a long while, till one day, as he was sitting in his shop, there came up an old man, and long of the beard, who laid down some silver and said, "Give me meat for this." He gave him his money's worth of flesh, and the old star went his ways. Just excuse me for a moment, I'll be back forthwith. Use the power of the fast forward button, people of Earth. Right, I apologise for the interruption. Let us resume the story. So they'd just been to the butcher and bought meat for in exchange for his silver. I think there'll be a storm later tonight. I can feel it brewing, building and building, the humidity. My brother examined the sheikh's silver, and seeing that the dirhams were white and bright, he set them in a place apart. The grey-beard continued to return to the shop regularly for 5 months, and my brother ceased not to lay up all the coin he received from him in its own box. At last he thought to take out the money to buy sheep, so he opened the box and found in it nothing save bits of white paper cut round to look like coin. So he buffeted his face and cried aloud till the folk gathered about him, whereupon he told them his tale, which made them marvel exceedingly. Then he rose, as was his wont, and, slaughtering a ram, hung it up inside his shop. After which he cut off some of the flesh, and hanging it outside kept saying to himself, "O Allah, would the ill-omened old fellow but come." And an hour had not passed before the sheikh came with his silver in hand. Whereupon my brother rose and caught hold of him, calling out, "Come aid me, O Muslims, and learn my story with this villain." When the old man heard this, he quietly said to him, "Which will be better for thee, to let go of me, or to be disgraced by me amidst the folk? And what wilt thou disgrace me? In that thou sellest man's flesh for mutton. Thou liest, thou accursed." "Nay, he is the accursed who hath a man hanging up by way of meat in his shop. If the manner be as thou sayest, I give thee lawful leave to take my money and my life." Then the old man cried aloud, "Ho, ye people, if you would prove the truth of my words, enter this man's shop." The folk rushed in and found that the ram was become a dead man hung up for sale. So they set upon my brother, crying out, "O infidel! O villain!" And his best friends fell to cuffing and kicking him, and kept saying, "Dost thou make us eat flesh of the sons of Adam?" Furthermore, the old man struck him on the eye and put it out. Then they carried the carcass, with the throat cut, before the chief of the city watch, to whom the old man said, "O Emir, this fellow butchers men and sells their flesh for mutton, and we have brought him to thee. So arise and execute the judgments of Allah, to whom be glory and honour." honour and glory, but same deal. My brother would have defended himself, but the chief refused to hear him and sentenced him to receive 500 sticks and to forfeit the whole of his property. And indeed, had it not been for that same property which he expended in bribes, they would have surely slain him. Then the chief banished him from Baghdad, and my brother fared forth at a venture, till he came to a great town, where he thought it best to set up as a cobbler. So he opened a shop, and sat there doing what he could for his livelihood. One day as he went forth on his business, he heard the distant tramp of horses, and asking the cause, was told that the king was going out to hunt and course. So my brother stopped to look at the fine suite. It so fortuned that the king's eye met my brother's, whereupon the king hung down his head and said, I seek refuge with Allah from the evil of this day, and turned the reins of his steed and returned home with all his retinue. Then he gave orders to his guards, who seized my brother and beat him with a beating so painful that he was well nigh dead, and my brother knew not what could be the cause of his maltreatment, after which he returned to his place in sorriest plight. And he's all doing weird things today. Going to the hairdresser on the 10th of December, I think it is. So, not long to go now, but I was a call for the last couple of weeks beforehand. It grinds my gears, but what can you do, darlings? Patience is a virtue. Soon afterwards, he went to one of the king's household and related what had happened to him. And the man laughed till he fell upon his back and cried, O brother mine, know that the king cannot bear to look at a monocular, especially if he be blind of the right eye, in which case he doth not let him go without killing him. When my brother heard this, he resolved to fly from that city. So he went forth from it to another wherein none knew him, and there he abode a long while. One day, being full of sorrowful thought for what had befallen him, he sallied out to solace himself, and, as he was walking along, he heard the distant tramp of horses behind him, and said, The judgment of Allah is upon me, and looked about for a hiding place, but found none. At last he saw a closed door which he pushed hard. It yielded, and he entered a long gallery in which he took refuge. But hardly had he done so, when two men set upon him, crying out, Allah be thanked for having delivered thee into our hands, O enemy of God. These 3 nights thou hast robbed us of our rest and sleep, and verily thou hast made us taste of the death cup. My brother asked, O folk, what ails you? And they answered, Thou givest us the change, and goest about to disgrace us, and plannest some plot to cut the throat of the housemaster. Is it not enough that thou hast brought him to beggary, thou and thy fellows? But now give us up the knife wherewith thou threatenest us every night. Then they searched him and found in his waist belt the knife used for his shoe leather. And he said, O people, have the fear of Allah before your eyes, and maltreat me not, for know that my story is a right strange. "And what is thy story?" said they. So he told them what had befallen him, hoping they would let him go. However, they paid no heed to what he said, and instead of showing some regard, beat him grievously and tore off his clothes. Then, finding on his sides the scars of beating with rods, they said, "O accursed, these marks are the manifest signs of thy guilt." They carried him before the governor, whilst he said to himself, "I am now punished for my sins, and none can deliver me, save Allah Almighty." The governor, addressing my brother, asked him, "O villain, what led thee to enter their house with intention to murder?" And my brother answered, "I conjure thee by Allah, O Emir, hear my words and be not hasty in condemning me." But the governor cried, "Shall we listen to the words of a robber who hath beggared these people, and who beareth on his back the scar of his stripes?" Adding, "They surely had not done this to thee, save for some great crime." So he sentenced him to receive 100 cuts about the city, proclaiming, "This is the requital, and only too little to requite him who breaketh into people's houses." Then they thrust him out of the city, and my brother wandered at random till I heard what had befallen him, and going in search of him, questioned him of his case. So he acquainted me with his story and all his mischances, and I carried him secretly to the city, where I made him an allowance for his meat and drink. Then the Caliph gave ear to the Barber's tale of his fifth brother. My fifth brother, Al-Nashar, the babbler, the same who was cropped of both ears, O commander of the faithful, was an asker wont to beg of folk by night, and live on their alms by day. Now, when our father, who was an old man well stricken in years, sickened and died, well stricken in years, comma, sickened and died, should be a comma there. He left us 700 dirhams, whereof each son took his 100. But as my fifth brother received his portion, he was perplexed and knew not what to do with it. While in this uncertainty, he bethought him to lay it out on glassware of all sorts and turn an honest penny on its price. So he bought 100 dirhams worth of verroterie. Here we go again, people of earth. Verroterie. Glass trinkets. Feminine noun of glass beads, glass jewellery. Depending on which. It's a French term, of course. Oh, that's interesting. Glass beads or glass work. Interesting. There you go. Another word I didn't know, my darlings. 59.5 years on this planet, by the goddess. and, putting it into a big tray, sat down to sell it on a bench at the foot of a wall against which he leant back. As he sat with his tray before him, he fell to musing and said to himself, "No, O my good self, but the head of my wealth, my principal invested in this glassware, is 100 dirhams. I will assuredly sell it for 200, with which I will forthright buy another glass, and make by it 400. Nor will I cease to sell and buy on this wise, till I have gotten 4,000, and soon find myself the master of much money. With these coins I will buy merchandise and jewels and ottars, and gain great profit on them, till, Allah willing, I will make my capital 100,000 dirhams. Then I will purchase a fine house with white slaves and eunuchs and horses, and I will eat and drink and disport myself, nor will I leave a singing man or a singing woman in the city, but I will summon them to my palace and make them perform before me." All this he counted over in his mind, while the tray of glassware, worth 100 dirhams, stood on the bench before him, and after looking at it, he continued, "And when, inshallah, my capital shall have become 100,000 dinars, I will send out marriage brokeresses to require for me in wedlock the daughters of kings and wazirs, and I will demand to wife the eldest daughter of the Prime Minister, for it hath reached me that she is perfect in beauty, and prime in loveliness, and rare in accomplishments. I will give a marriage settlement of 1,000 dinars, and if her father consent, well, but if not, I will take her by force from under his very nose. When she is safely homed in my house, I will buy 10 little eunuchs, and for myself a robe of the robes of kings and sultans, and get me a saddle of gold, and a bridle set thick with gems of price. Then I will mount with the Mamelukes preceding me and surrounding me, and I will make the round of the city, whilst the folk salute me and bless me, after which I will repair to the wazir, he that is father of the girl, with armed white slaves before and behind me, and on my right and on my left. When he sees me, the wazir stands up, and seating me in his own place, sits down much below me, for that I am to be his son-in-law. Now I have with me 2 eunuchs carrying purses, each containing 1,000 dinars, and of these I deliver to him 1,000, his daughter's marriage settlement, and make him a free gift of the other 1,000, that he may have reason to know my generosity and liberality, and my greatness of spirit, and the littleness of the world in my eyes. And for 10 words he addresses to me, I answer him 2. Then back I go to my house. And if one come to me on the bride's part, I make him a present of money. I make him a present of money, and throw on him a dress of honour. But if he bring me a gift, I give it back to him and refuse to accept it. that they may learn what a proud spirit is mine, which never condescends to derogate. Thus I establish my rank and status. When this is done, I appoint her wedding night and adorn my house showily, gloriously. And as the time for parading the bride has come, I don my finest attire and sit down on a mattress of gold brocade, propping up my elbow with a pillow, and turning neither to the right nor to the left, but looking only straight in front, for the haughtiness of my mind and the gravity of my understanding. And there before me stands my wife in her raiment and ornaments, lovely as the full moon, and I, in my loftiness and dread lordliness, will not glance at her till those present say to me, O our Lord and our Master, thy wife, thy handmaid, standeth before thee. Vouchsafe her one look, for standing wearieth her. Then they kiss the ground before me many times, whereupon I raise my eyes and cast at her one single glance, and turn my face earthwards again. Then they bear her off to the bride chamber, and I arise and change my clothes for a far finer suit. And when they bring in the bride a second time, I deign not to throw her a look, till they have begged me many times, after which I glance at her out of the corner of my eye, and then bend down my head. I continue acting after this fashion till the parading and displaying are completed. Then I bend down my head and continue acting after this fashion till her parading and displaying are completed. Thereupon I order one of my eunuchs to bring me a bag of 500 dinars, which I give as largesse to the tire women present, and bid them one and all lead me to the bride chamber. When they leave me alone with her, I neither look at her nor speak to her, but lie by her side with my face to the wall, showing my contempt, that each and every may again remark how high and haughty I am. Presently her mother comes in to me, and kissing my head and hand, says to me, O my lord, look upon thy handmaid, who longs for thy favour, so heal her broken spirit. I give her no answer, and when she sees this, she rises and busses my feet many times, and says, O my lord, in very sooth my daughter is a beautiful maid, who hath never known man, and if thou show her this backwardness and aversion, her heart will break. So do thou incline to her, and speak to her, and soothe her mind and spirit. Then she rises and fetches a cup of wine, and says to her daughter, Take it and hand it to thy lord. But as she approaches me, I leave her standing between my hands and sit, propping my elbow on a round cushion purfled with gold thread, leaning lazily back and without looking at her in the majesty of my spirit, so that she may deem me indeed a sultan and a mighty man. Then she says to me, O my lord, Allah upon thee, do not refuse to take the cup from the hand of thine handmaid, for verily I am thy bondswoman. But I do not speak to her, and she presses me, saying, There is no help but that thou drink it. And she puts it to my lips. Then I shake my fist in her face and kick her with my foot thus. So he let out with his toe and knocked over the tray of glassware, which fell to the ground, and, falling from the bench, all that was on it was broken to bits. O foulest of pimps! This comes from the pride of my spirit, cried my brother. And then, O commander of the faithful, he buffeted his face and rent his garments, and kept on weeping and beating himself. The folk who were flocking to their Friday prayers saw him, and some of them looked at him and pitied him, whilst others paid no heed to him, and in this way my brother lost both capital and profit. He remained weeping a long while, and at last up came a beautiful lady, the scent of musk exhaling from her, who was going to Friday prayers riding a mule with a gold saddle and followed by several eunuchs, as you do, back in the day. When she saw the broken glass and my brother weeping, her kind heart was moved to pity for him, and she asked what ailed him, and was told that he had a tray full of glassware, by the sale of which he hoped to gain his living, but it was broken. And said they, There befell him what thou seest. Thereupon she called up one of her eunuchs and said to him, Give what thou hast with thee to this poor fellow. And he gave my brother a purse in which he found 500 dinars. And when it touched his hand, he was well nigh dying for excess of joy, and he offered up blessings for her. Then he returned to his abode, a substantial man, and as he sat considering, someone rapped at the door. So he rose and opened, and saw an old woman, whom he had never seen. O my son, said she, know that prayer tide is near, and I have not yet made my wuzu ablution, so kindly allow me the use of thy lodging for the purpose. My brother answered, To hear is to comply, and going in bade her follow him. So she entered, and he brought her an ewer wherewith to wash, and sat down like to fly with joy because of the dinars which he had tied up in his belt for a purse. When the old woman had made the end of her ablution, she came up to where he sat and prayed a 2-bow prayer, after which she blessed my brother with a godly benediction, and he, while thanking her, put his hand to the dinars and gave her 2, saying to himself, These are my voluntaries. When she saw the gold, she cried, Praise be to Allah! Why dost thou look on one who loveth thee as if she were a beggar? Take back thy money. I have no need of it, or, if thou want it not, return it to her who gave it thee when thy glassware was broken. Moreover, if thou wish to be united with her, I can manage the matter, for she is my mistress." "O my mother," asked my brother, "by what manner of means can I get at her?" She answered, "O my son, she hath an inclination for thee, but she is the wife of a wealthy man. So take the whole of thy money with thee and follow me, that I may guide thee to thy desire. And when thou art in her company, spare neither persuasion nor fair words, but bring them all to bear upon her, so thou shalt enjoy her beauty and wealth to thy heart's content." My brother took all his gold and rose and followed the old woman, hardly believing in his luck. She ceased not faring on, and my brother following her, till they came to a tall gate at which she knocked, and a roomy slave girl came out and opened to them. Then the old woman led my brother into a great sitting room, spread with wondrous fine carpets and hung with curtains, where he sat down with his gold before him and his turban on his knee. He had scarcely taken seat before there came to him a young lady, never I saw fairer, clad in garments of the most sumptuous. I love that word, sumptuous. Someone on Pal Talk, an Englishman, many, many years ago referred to me that way. One of those types that want an internet, cyber-sexual dalliance. It's such a waste of time. But I must say, it was a very fine compliment he bestowed upon me. Sumptuous. Whereupon my brother rose to his feet, and she smiled in his face and welcomed him, signing to him to be seated in her sumptuousness and all. Then she bade shut the door, and when it was shut, she turned to my brother, and taking his hand conducted him to a private chamber, furnished with various kinds of brocades and gold cloths. Here he sat down, and she sat by his side and toyed with him a while. After which she rose and saying, "Stir not from thy seat till I come back to thee," disappeared. Meanwhile, as he was on this wise, lo, there came to him a black slave, big of body and bulk, and holding a drawn sword in hand, who said to him, "Woe to thee! Who brought thee hither, and what dost thou want here?" My brother could not return him a reply, being tongue-tied for terror. So the blackamoor seized him and stripped him of his clothes and bashed him with the flat of his sword blade till he fell to the ground, swooning from excess of belabouring. The ill-omened negro fancied that there was an end of him, and my brother heard him cry, "Where is the salt wench?" Whereupon in came a handmaid, holding in hand a large tray of salt, and the slave kept rubbing it into my brother's wounds, but he did not stir, fearing lest the slave might find out that he was not dead and kill him outright. Then the salt girl went away, and the slave cried, "Where is the souterrain guardianess?" Whereupon in came the old woman and dragged my brother by his feet to a souterrain, and threw him down upon a heap of dead bodies. In this place he lay 2 full days. But Allah made the salt the means of preserving his life by staunching the blood and staying its flow. Presently, feeling himself able to move, Al-Nashar rose and opened the trapdoor in fear and trembling, and crept out into the open, and Allah protected him, so that he went on in the darkness and hid himself in the vestibule till dawn, when he saw the accursed beldam sallying forth in quest of other quarry. He followed in her wake without her knowing it, and made for his own lodging, where he dressed his wounds and medicined himself till he was whole. Meanwhile, he used to watch the old woman, tracking her at all times and seasons, and saw her accost one man after another and carry them to the house. However, he uttered not a word, but, as soon as he waxed hale and hearty, he took a piece of stuff and made it into a bag, which he filled with broken glass and bound about his middle. He also disguised himself as a Persian, that none might know him, and hid his sword under his clothes of foreign cut. Then he went out, and presently, falling in with the old woman, said to her, speaking Arabic with a Persian accent, "Venerable lady, I am a stranger arrived but this day here, where I know no one. Hast thou a pair of scales wherein I may weigh 1,100 dinars? I will give thee somewhat of them for thy pains. I have a son, a money changer, who keepeth all kinds of scales," she answered. "So come with me to him before he goeth out, and he will weigh your gold, thy gold." My brother answered, "Lead the way." She led him to the house, and the young lady herself came out and opened it, whereupon the old woman smiled into her face and said, "I bring thee fat meat today." Then the damsel took my brother by the hand and led him to the same chamber as before, where she sat with him a while, then rose and went forth, saying, "Stir not from thy seat till I come back to thee." Presently in came the accursed slave with the drawn sword, and cried to my brother, "Up and be damned to thee." So he rose, and as the slave walked on before him, he drew the sword from under his clothes and smote him with it, making head fly from body. Then he dragged the corpse by the feet to the souterrain and called out, "Where is the salt wench?" Up came the girl carrying the tray of salt, and, seeing my brother, sword in hand, turned to fly, but he followed her and struck off her head. Then he called out, "Where is the souterrain guardianess?" And in came the old woman, to whom he said, "Dost know me again, ill-omened hag?" "No, my lord," she replied. And he said, "I am the owner of the 500 gold pieces, whose house thou enterest to make the ablution and to pray, and whom thou didst snare hither and betray." "Fear Allah and spare me," cried she, but he regarded her not, and struck her with the sword till he had cut her in 4. 4 pieces. Choking mama. Then he went to look for the young lady, and when she saw him, her reason fled, and she cried out piteously, "Aman, mercy!" So he spared her and asked, What made thee consort with this blackamoor? And she answered, I was slave to a certain merchant, and the old woman used to visit me till I took a liking to her. One day she said to me, we have a marriage festival at our house, the like of which was never seen, and I wish thee to enjoy the sight. To hear is to obey, answered I, and rising arrayed myself in my finest raiment and ornaments, and took with me a purse containing 100 gold pieces. Then she brought me hither, and hardly had I entered the house, when the black seized on me, and I have remained in this case 3 whole years, through the perfidy of the accursed beldam. Then my brother asked her, is there anything of his in the house? Whereto she answered, great store of wealth, and if thou art able to carry it away, do so, and Allah give thee good of it. My brother went with her, and she opened to him sundry chests, wherein were money bags, at which he was astounded. Then she said to him, go now and leave me here, and fetch men to remove the money. He went out and hired 10 men. But when he returned, he found the door wide open, the damsel gone, and nothing left but some small matter of coin and the household stuffs. By this he knew that the girl had overreached him, so he opened the storerooms and seized what was in them, together with the rest of the money, leaving nothing in the house. He passed the night rejoicing, but when morning dawned, he found at the door some 20 troopers, who laid hands on him, saying, the governor wants thee. My brother implored them hard to let him return to his house, and even offered them a large sum of money. But they refused, and binding him fast with cords, carried him off. On the way they met a friend of my brother who clung to his skirt and implored his protection, begging him to stand by him and help him to deliver him out of their hands. The man stopped and asked them what was the matter, and they answered, the governor hath ordered us to bring this fellow before him, and look ye, we are doing so. My brother's friend urged them to release him, and offered them 500 dinars to let him go, saying, when you return to the governor, tell him that you were unable to find him. But they would not listen to his words, and took my brother, dragging him along on his face, and set him before the governor, who asked him, whence gottest thou these stuffs and monies? And he answered, I pray for mercy. So the governor gave him the kerchief of mercy, and he told him all that had befallen him from first to last, with the old woman and the flight of the damsel, ending with, whatso I have taken, take of it what thou wilt, so thou leave me sufficient to support life. But the governor took the whole of the stuffs and all the money for himself, and, fearing lest the affair come to the Sultan's ears, he summoned my brother and said, depart from the city, else I will hang thee. Hearing and obedience, quoth my brother, and set out for another town. On the way, thieves fell foul of him, and stripped and beat him, and docked his ears, But I heard tidings of his misfortunes, and went out after him, taking him clothes, and brought him secretly into the city, where I assigned to him an allowance for meat and drink. And presently the Caliph gave ear to the Barber's tale of his sixth brother. My sixth brother, O Commander of the Faithful, Shakashik, or many clamours, the shorn of both lips, was once rich and became poor. So one day he went out to beg somewhat to keep life in him. As he was on the road, he suddenly caught sight of a large and handsome mansion, with a detached building, wide and lofty at the entrance, where sat sundry eunuchs, bidding and forbidding. My brother inquired of one of those idling there, and he replied, "The palace belongs to a scion of the Barmaki house." So he stepped up to the doorkeepers and asked an alms of them. "Enter," said they, "by the great gate, and thou shalt get what thou seekest from the wazir, our master." Accordingly, he went in, and, passing through the outer entrance, walked on a while, and presently came to a mansion of the utmost beauty and elegance, paved with marble, hung with curtains, and having in the midst of it a flower garden whose like he had never seen. My brother stood a while, as one bewildered, not knowing whither to turn his steps. Then, seeing the farther end of the sitting chamber tenanted, he walked up to it, and there found a man of handsome presence and comely beard. When this personage saw my brother, he stood up to him and welcomed him, and asked him of his case. Whereto he replied that he was in want and needed charity. Hearing these words, the grandee showed great concern, and putting his hand to his fine robe, rent it, exclaiming, "What? Am I in a city, and thou here an hungered? I have not patience to bear such disgrace." Then he promised him all manner of good cheer, and said, "There is no help but that thou stay with me and eat of my salt." "O my lord," answered my brother, "I can wait no longer, for I am indeed dying of hunger." So he cried, "Ho, boy, bring basin and ewer," and turning to my brother said, "O my guest, come forward and wash thy hands." My brother rose to do so, but he saw neither ewer nor basin, yet his host kept washing his hands with invisible soap and imperceptible water, and cried, "Bring the table." But my brother again saw nothing. Then said the host, "Honour me by eating of this meat, and be not ashamed." He kept moving his hand to and fro, as if he ate, and saying to my brother, "I wonder to see thee eating thus sparely. Do not stint thyself, for I am sure thou art famished." So my brother began to make as though he were eating, whilst his host kept saying to him, "Fall to, and note especially the excellence of this bread and its whiteness." But still my brother saw nothing. Then said he to himself, "This man is fond of poking fun at people," and replied, "O my lord, in all my days I never knew aught more winsome than its whiteness or sweeter than its savour. The Barber seed said, Barber seed probably means crazy person, I'm guessing. Let's just confirm that, shall we? Barmecide. A person who offers benefits that are illusory or disappointing. An adjective which means illusory or imaginary and therefore disappointing. Never mind, I won't say it. The Barber seed is in this case used as a noun, implying trickster, said, "This bread was baked by a handmaid of mine, whom I bought for 500 dinars. Then he yelled out, "Ho, boy, bring in the bread pudding for our first dish, and let there be plenty of fat in it." And, turning to my brother, said, "O my guest, Allah upon thee, hast ever seen anything better than this meat pudding? Now by my life eat, and be not abashed." Presently he cried out again, "Ho, boy, serve up the marinated stew with the fatted sand grouse in it." He said to my brother, "Up and eat, O my guest, for truly thou art hungry and needest food." So my brother began wagging his jaws and made as if champing and chewing, whilst the host continued calling for one dish after another, and yet produced nothing save orders to eat. Presently he cried out, "Ho, boy, bring us the chicken stuffed with pistachio nuts," and said to my brother, "By thy life, O my guest, I have fattened these chickens upon pistachios. Eat, for thou hast never eaten their like." "O my lord," replied my brother, "they are indeed first rate." Then the host began motioning with his hand as though he were giving my brother a mouthful, and ceased not to enumerate and expatiate upon the various dishes to the hungry man, whose hunger waxed still more violent, so that his soul lusted after a bit of bread, even of barley scone. Quoth the Barber seed, "Didst thou ever taste anything more delicious than the seasoning of these dishes?" And quoth my brother, "Never, O my lord." "Eat heartily and be not ashamed," said the host, and the guest, "I have eaten my fill of meat." So the entertainer cried, "Take away and bring in the sweets." And turning to my brother said, "Eat of this almond conserve, for it is prime, and of these honey fritters. Take this one, by my life, the syrup runs out of it." "May I never be bereaved of thee, O my lord," replied the hungry one, and began to ask him about the abundance of musk in the fritters. "Such is my custom," he answered. "They put me a dinar weight of musk in every honey fritter, and half that quantity of ambergris." All this time my brother kept wagging head and jaws till the master cried, "Enough of this, bring us the dessert." Then said he to him, "Eat of these almonds and walnuts and raisins, and of this and that," naming divers kinds of dried fruits, "and be not abashed." But my brother replied, "O my lord, indeed I am full." I can eat no more." "O my guest," repeated the host, "if thou have a mind to these good things, eat. Allah, Allah, do not remain hungry." But my brother rejoined, "O my lord, he who hath eaten of all these dishes, how can he be hungry?" Then he considered and said to himself, I will do that shall make him repent of these pranks." Presently the entertainer called out, "Bring me the wine," and moving his hands in the air as though they had set it before them, he gave my brother a cup and said, "Take this cup, and if it please thee, let me know." "O my lord," he replied, "it is notable good as to nose, but I am wont to drink wine some 20 years old." "Knock then at this door," quoth the host, "for thou canst not drink of aught better." "By thy kindness," said my brother, motioning with his hand as though he were drinking. "Health and joy to thee," exclaimed the housemaster, and feigned to fill a cup and drink it off. Then he handed another to my brother, who quaffed it and made as if he were drunken. Presently he took the host unawares, and raising his arm till the white of his armpit appeared, dealt him such a cuff on the nape of his neck that the palace echoed to it. Then he came down upon him with a second cuff, and the entertainer cried aloud, "What is this, O thou scum of the earth?" "O my lord," replied my brother, "thou hast shown much kindness to thy slave, and admitted him into thine abode, and given him to eat of thy victual. Then thou madest him drink of thine old wine till he became drunken and boisterous. But thou art too noble not to bear with his ignorance and pardon his offence." When the Barmaki heard my brother's words, he laughed his loudest and said, "Long have I been wont to make mock of men and play the madcap among my intimates, but never yet have I come across a single one who had the patience and the wit to enter into all my humours, save thyself. So I forgive thee, and thou shalt be my boon companion in very sooth, and never leave me." Then he ordered the servants to lay the table in earnest, and they set on all of the dishes of which he had spoken in sport, and he and my brother ate till they were well satisfied, after which they removed to the drinking chamber, where they found damsels like moons, who sang all manner songs and played on all manner instruments. There they remained drinking till their wine got the better of them, and the host treated my brother like a familiar friend, so that he became as it were his brother, and bestowed on him a robe of honour, and loved him with exceeding love. Next morning the two fell again to feasting and carousing, and ceased not to lead this life for a term of 20 years, at the end of which the Barmecide died, and the Sultan took possession of all his wealth and squeezed my brother of his savings, till he was left a pauper without a penny to handle. So he quitted the city and fled forth following his face. Oh, are we still filming? Just accidentally went on something. Yes. Because we're nearly finished. But when he was halfway between two towns. The wild Arabs fell on him and bound him and carried him to their camp, where his captor proceeded to torture him, saying, "By thy life of me with thy money, else I will slay thee." My brother began to weep and replied, "By Allah, I have nothing, neither gold nor silver. But I am thy prisoner, so do with me what thou wilt." Then the Badawi drew a knife, broad-bladed and so sharp-grinded that if plunged into a camel's throat, it would sever it clean across from one jugular to the other, and cut off my brother's lips, and waxed more instant in requiring money. Now this Badawi had a fair wife who in her husband's absence used to make advances to my brother and offer him her favours, but he held off from her. One day she began to tempt him as usual, and he played with her and made her sit on his lap, when, behold, in came the Badawi, who, seeing this, cried out, "Woe to thee, O accursed villain! Wouldst thou debauch my wife for me?" Then he took out a knife and cut off my brother's yard. By that they mean penis. After which he bound him on the back of a camel and carried him to a mountain, left him there. He was at last found by some who recognized him and gave him meat and drink and acquainted me with his condition, whereupon I went forth to him and brought him back to Baghdad, where I made him an allowance sufficient to live on. This then, O Commander of the Faithful, is the history of my 6 brothers, and I feared to go away without relating it all to thee, and leave thee in the error of judging me to be like them. And now thou knowest that I have 6 brothers upon my hands, and being more upright than they, I support the whole family. When the Caliph heard my story and I told him concerning my brothers, he laughed, said, "Thou sayest sooth, O silent man, thou art indeed spare of speech, nor is there aught of forwardness in thee. But now go forth out of the city, and settle in some other." And he banished me under edict. I left Baghdad and travelled in foreign parts, till I heard of his death and the accession of another to the caliphate. Then I returned to Baghdad, where I found all my brothers dead, and chanced upon this young man, to whom I rendered the kindliest service, for without me he had surely been killed. Indeed, he slanders me and accuses me of a fault which is not in my nature, and what he reports concerning impudence and meddling and forwardness is idle and false. For verily on his account I left Baghdad and travelled about full many a country, till I came to the city and met him here in your company. And was not this, O worthy assemblage, of the generosity of my nature? And Scheherazade perceived the dawn of day, and ceased saying her permitted say. Then quoth Dunyazad, "O my sister, how pleasant is thy tale, and how tasteful, how sweet, and how grateful." And Scheherazade replied, "And where is this compared with the sleeper and the waker, that I could tell thee this coming night, if I live and the king spare me?" Said the king in himself, "By Allah, I will not slay her until I hear her story, for her tale-telling truly is wondrous. And so tomorrow, or another day, according to how I feel about life in general, we will continue reading with the sleeper and the walker. So many wonderful stories. Oh yes, they have Sinbad the Sailor and Aladdin and the Wonderful Lamp and others that I've never heard of before. So there you go, my beautiful people of planet Earth and all other interdimensional entities. Blessed be by the grace of all the gods. Have a wonderful afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the space-time continuum. Here on planet Earth it is now 5:23 p.m. and I'm rather tired, can you tell? So be of good cheer, take good care, and I'll speak to you anon. Bye for now.